Welcome. Let's call this meeting to order. This is the Green Line Extension Corridor Management Committee. I'm Charlie Zelli, Chair. Good to see everyone. And maybe just to provide a quick welcome, why don't we go around the room and just do quick introductions. I'm also a reminder, I always got notes to remind everyone that these mics are live. So, think about your sidebar jokes, they're all recorded. This meeting is recorded, and if there are members of the public who are watching, feel free to email any comments or questions to David Davies, who's sitting here, but his email address is david.davies@metrotransit.org, and anytime before June 14th. And I'm going to turn to my left. Don, who's rumored that might be retiring in the next couple of weeks after 43 years. So we're going to save.
Hi, I'm Leslie Kinderis, the General Manager of Metro Transit.
Hey, good morning, Robert Lilligren, Met Council Member for District 6, which is pretty much all of South Minneapolis.
Good morning, I'm Dan Duffy, Co-Chair of the Business Advisory Committee.
Suzanne Sabatka, I'm the Policy Director to Mayor Jacob Fry, City of Minneapolis.
Morning, everybody. Jim Hovland, Mayor of Edina.
Morning, David Davies, Public Involvement Manager for the project.
Good morning, Jim Alexander, Project Director.
John Tao, Office of Equity and Equal Opportunity with the Project Office.
Debbie Gotal, Hennepin County Commissioner. I think you should double her salary.
Brad Wilson, Mayor of Minnetonka.
Connie Sahibjan, Department of Transportation, Metro District.
Tim Browson, St. Louis Park City Council. Welcome to our city. I'm here on behalf of Mayor Mohammed today.
Hi, Ely Farhad on behalf of Hennepin County Commissioner Marion Green.
Well, and welcome everyone. It is a great day in St. Louis Park. Thank you for hosting us once again. Before I forget, and we'll talk about this in a minute, there's a handout that we have, and we have a stack of them. And I encourage everybody.
He's got them all. He's saving them. He won't pass them out.
All right, so before we leave, David's going to make sure everybody gets a handful for your fellow commissioners or council members or others. Everybody always says, can you explain the transit network in the quick elevator ride? And it's always best to have a handout. This says so much. It's not just a vision, it's a map, the future interconnected system. But the backside talks about the economic effect since 2002. Pretty remarkable. And it's already happened, as we've talked about here in the Green Line Extension. So I just think it's helpful when people say nobody rides transit anymore. And I always say, well, don't tell that to the 130,000 people a day that are operating the system. So having said that, we'll have a chance more to hear from David and others. But first, the minutes from, believe it or not, February 7th. Seems like just the other day. We had a meeting. Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Those minutes are approved. One other quick note before we start hearing our updates, and that is on June 18th at Target Station, right outside of Target Field, we're going to be celebrating 20 years of LRT, the 20 years from the Blue Line, which is amazing that it's 20 years, and it's actually 10 years for the Green Line. So we always say we build a light rail every 10 years. Well, we're doing a lot of things now, 10 years later. But 20 years is a kind of a landmark to date to celebrate, and we hope you'll join us.
20 years that it started or ended?
That it actually operated, I think.
Operated.
2004.
Yeah. Now it's been planned for 50 years. It was actually operating for 20 years. And I think it's the event is 4:30, short program. And if that doesn't interest you, there's a great ball game at Target Field playing Tampa. And the transit driver and operator is throwing out the first pitch. So.
Oh, fun.
Cool.
Yes.
Sure, maybe a show of hands who was there 20 years ago when we cut the ribbon. Yeah.
Oh, right. I was in my office right along Hiawatha, looking out the window saying, how bad is this really gonna be? I can't believe they're doing this.
Morning or afternoon or evening?
This is 4:30 in the afternoon
Okay, 4:30.
on the 18th, June 18th.
I'm gonna try to be.
And by the way, it was very quiet and goes by quickly. And I thought, you know what, this isn't so bad. So I tell my story. And now it is here, 20 years later. All right, so now speaking of transit, we're really grateful that Leslie Canderas, General Manager, could be here, a regular attendee, but also give us an update on all things transit.
Great. Well, thank you, Chair Zelli, committee members. Just a few updates from Metro Transit, but would be happy to take any questions as well. On the ridership front, we continue to see ridership grow. We ended 2023 with ridership about 16% higher than in 2022. And in the first 4 months of this year, ridership's up about 12% compared to the start of 2023. So we're glad to continue to see those trends. To break that down a little bit more, bus ridership's up about 13% in the start of this year. Light rail ridership's up about 10%. North Star ridership's up about 33%. And currently, if you look at January through the end of April, the average weekday ridership is 144,000 weekday rides. In addition to ridership increasing, we continue to increase service as hiring allows. We've been working very hard to fill our operator positions and many other essential positions so we can continue to build back service, which in turn will help us continue to attract more riders. June 15th is our quarterly service adjustments. So we'll be making some changes throughout our system to accommodate detours and also add some additional frequency on some routes. And looking ahead to August, we'll have another round of service changes. And at that time, we're looking to bring light rail frequency up during some of our peak hours as well, assuming hiring allows us to do so. So looking forward to that. Shifting gears a little bit to public safety, one of the top priorities of mine, and certainly something I hear daily from our employees and our riders, is how public safety is on our system these days. The good news is, as ridership's grown, we've actually seen a decrease in crime. The first quarter of 2024 saw about a 7.5% decline in crime compared to the first quarter of last year. So that's a good sign. And part of what we're focused on right now is really increasing official presence on our system. A couple years back, to this month, the Metropolitan Council created a safety and security action plan, and one of the cornerstones of that plan was building up layers of presence on our system. So in addition to our Metro Transit Police Department, we now have supplemental security officers at key locations. Starting in December, we had community service officers begin inspecting fares and writing citations, which becomes more visible activity on light rail in particular. That was made possible by a legislative change last year to allow us to write administrative citations for fare non-compliance as opposed to the previous misdemeanor citations, which only were issued by police officers. So community service officers began doing that in December. And then at the end of February, we launched our first batch of Transit Rider Investment Program, or TRIP agents. So we have about 20 TRIP agents on our system right now. And just on Friday, we posted to hire another 22 more. And so we're excited to grow that program, and we're seeing interest in that role as well. Just since posting that job on Friday, we've had over 200 applications. So we're excited about the interest we're seeing there and looking to continue to build and learn and grow that program. And then finally, I was going to mention the anniversary too, so just want to echo the chair's invitation to join us as we celebrate 10 years of Green Line and 20 years of Blue Line on June 18th. But with that, I'd be happy to take any questions or touch on anything I didn't mention.
Linda Higgins. Wonderful.
Any questions for Leslie?
You said that as finances allow for hiring, so what's going to drive that?
Say that again, sorry.
You said for additional hiring for personnel, finances as they allow. I understand that. What's going to drive that?
Sure. So like many employers, we have been struggling with filling some essential positions over the last few years. Earlier this year, the Metropolitan Council and ATU, the union that represents our frontline workers, ratified a new contract that raised wages. Since then, we have seen an uptick in applications, so I think that's one factor that's contributing to helping us hire more people. But we're also a growing system. I didn't mention it, but looking ahead to next year, we're going to open 3 new bus rapid transit lines. So, we're filling vacancies we have now to get more service on the street, as well as hiring to prepare to launch future transit ways. So at this point, it's really, getting the interest, getting qualified applicants in the door and onboarded. That is the main challenge, yeah.
Yeah, Brad.
Thank you, Chair Zelli, and thank you for your comments. It's very encouraging to hear that the crime rate is down, but I know that, residents are concerned about crime.
Yeah.
I know that's the case in our city. We publish crime statistics, and we tell people that that crime is down, but if they don't perceive it to be down, perceptions drive behavior.
Absolutely.
And so, do we have trended information on how on the crime statistics? And I'm not sure what they are for Metro Transit, but I know that in our city we've said, well, crime is down, and it was down from last year, but it wasn't down from the peak that we had 2 or 3 years ago. And I think that context is important to say, not only just 1 year, because we're doing the right things, but it was this bad and it's coming down. So any trended information you have, I think, would be helpful to us.
Yeah, thank you for that comment, and especially the recognition that perception is so key. And so the numbers don't matter if you personally have an experience that leads you to feel unsafe. And that's part of why we've put such focus on increasing official visible presence on our system. When we engage with riders, they tell us that presence leads them to feel more safe, more welcomed on our system. So that's, we feel that tool and being able to continue to build that program will help. We do look at crime trends. I don't, off the top of my head,
and that's
want
fine.
to start, but yeah, we can
but
certainly.
maybe for a future report.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's, I mean, we battle that as well. And I know that I get calls from people. Well, speeding is a problem in our city, as it is in every city. And if we have more police officers and more police cars visible, that has a demonstrable effect. And so I think that visibility is really important. I think that the programs that Metro Transit has implemented are exactly right, and I appreciate you doing that.
Following up on that, thank you, Mayor, is we're short of police officers, which we're continuing to recruit and have career pathways. It's going to be a slow process, because we read about it in Minneapolis and many other jurisdictions, and we're into different. These trip agents, where we're now have an agreement with the ATU, and we're seeing a lot of applications.
Excellent.
And the trip agents aren't sworn police officers, but they're human presence with uniforms on the trains. And I think we're going to be able to see a demonstrative increase in the number of those folks this year, and that encourages me. Again, it's that human presence. They're not, crime fighters, but they are, because they're a deterrent when you see a blue uniform. Yeah. Any other questions for transit? All right. Well, obviously, to be continued. Now the project itself, we've had a number of tours recently, and I highly encourage. We're going to hear about them. But I have to say, every time, I won't say it's every day, although this past week it has been every day in my neighborhood on the Kenilworth Trail. There are changes every day, so you really do notice quite a bit of progress. So, Jim and David.
All right, thank you, Chair. So start off with this slide. I always remind folks of all the things we're building. We're starting to wrap up on a lot of things on this project, particularly on the civil. We're looking at Southwest Station all the way up to Beltline. That civil is going to be pretty much done by July 4th, maybe a little bit before then. The trails. There's a lot of sidewalk work right now, finishing some roadway work that I'll cover here, but we're making some good progress. And unfortunately, we have a lot of things torn up in Minneapolis right now, but we're making some headway there as well. And so I'll go ahead and get into the nitty-gritty here. So we continue to track the construction workers. You can see 80% of the counties within the state of Minnesota are represented by workers that are on the project. And John will talk about the DBE, but that's really looking favorable, continues to be favorable. Both contractors are very active in pursuing DBE involvement. So I'll start off with trails here. We got a couple of red bubbles there on the left side that we're looking to open up fairly soon. We just paved trail from from our new intersection at 17th and K-Tel and 5th in Minnetonka Hawkins there, all the way over to 11th. And so we need to get fencing still up to get that done. And then the section from Excelsior over to Blake, I think my guy just told me that was paved just yesterday. So we are still needing to get some fencing up there, and but we'll be essentially all the way from 17th or Shady Oak area all the way over to Chowan into the Greenway that will have trail established. Of course, we talked about Minneapolis. They're still going to be lagging in 25. We still have to get the tunnel done before we can put trail on top of it, and then the other segments further east. But we are progressing. So we'll get into civil construction. We'll start out west like we typically do. This is just some images of that 17th Avenue extension. So we're essentially building a new roadway from Excelsior down to K-Tel and 5th, and creating a new intersection there where the Shady Oak Station is going to be. And we got the little bikeway going there next to the road. And this is that intersection. So a lot of activity here this week. I got a whole different assortment of forces out there working to get things buttoned up, and so that's progressing pretty well. We're looking to have this intersection open by the end of the month here. And then some of the paved trail that I took this image on Monday when I was out scooting around a little bit. The Shady Oak on the left side, and the trail that extends from that new intersection all the way over to 11th, and from west of there, it'll continue to be the crushed limestone going back to the original scope there. And we're just a little bit west of Blake Road. They were just fine grading this Monday, so I understand they paved that now. And so, as I say, we need to get fencing up, and we have agreements still to get finalized with Three Rivers, which we typically do, before we can open up. And of course, be punch list going through that as well. This is Blake Road Station, and you can see off in the distance the Howland development, and we have a small park and ride there, about 89 stalls or so, station there. Can't really tell, but if you ever get a chance to go out and take a look at these what we call wickets, these vertical pieces that are just in front of the station, some of those they're really looking nice. The camera doesn't really pick them up as well, but if you get around to take a look at that. And we'll eventually have some fencing around these Z crossings, we call them, as we cross LRT and freight. And Louisiana Station coming along as well. The station there, the main park and ride, we have about 350 stalls all told at that station, so that's coming along pretty well. And then Beltline Boulevard, we just finished up this trail here. This extends over to Beltline. That's done now because we're essentially working on the sidewalk on the west side to get that finished. And so we have a little detour for bikes to go over that and get up on the bridge you see off in the distance.
That bridge is the bike trail for those who haven't ridden over it, and it's pretty amazing and substantial. And when we get accused of attaching a light rail line to a bike trail, this is kind of what people are thinking about.
Yeah,
right.
That's great.
Yes, yeah, that's turned out to be a really good structure, and it's nice that we can actually have it in use now. Okay, Westlake Street. We currently have some little traffic disruption going there. We have roadway traffic diverted onto the south side of the roadway, single lane both ways, and we're building essentially barrier between the sidewalk, which we widened, and a little barrier for pedestrians between that and the traffic. We're also accommodating space for the B line that will be eventually linking up into the Southwest LRT at this station. So this is the vertical circulation on the north side you're seeing here that has stair and elevator. And then the tunnel. So I do have a video I'm going to follow up with, but just kind of remind folks, I get, it seems like comments are still coming through about our construction and whether, we're constrained by the freight rail. We are constrained by the freight rail. We have to stop work if there's a train coming through, and that does take time. And I think there's still a lot of disbelief that it really does slow things down, but it does on the Wayzata sub, as we talked about, where BNSF runs and down through here. And it's not really to get off the railroads. They have to run their traffic through here for commodities within the state, but it's just a constraint that we have. So I wanted to run through this video. I showed this Minnesota Transportation Conference on Friday, but just kind of give you an overview. So this is Westlake Street Station and Westlake Street up on top there. You can get a really appreciation of the confinement. This is one access that the contractor has to get into the construction site. And there's the other access is just up here a little bit, and then the other one's the other end of the tunnel. But essentially we have a trail temporarily located off to the left there. That's the boat section as we get across the roadway. And of course, see the railroad tracks that we have scooted over about 4 feet. We'll put those back in the original location once we're done. And then we have the Sika parking ramp there. You can see how close we are. This is where the secants are going. And you can see the construction equipment there as we go by the condominium tower. So this is really where the activity is going on right now. We have 19 of the 30 cells that we completed. And that's kind of where, as we head here, we have backfilled already a good portion of those. And we have I think we have 5 cells yet to do a tremie seal. That's the concrete placement underwater that we do, and that's to provide essentially ballast, if you will, so the tunnel doesn't float as we're constructing it. And we get onto Cedar Lake Parkway here. So the contractor's limited. We cannot run heavy equipment on that roadway. We use access from Sunset over to Depot Street to get concrete in. The contractor also uses they have a relationship with the railroad to bring in materials, and so that is helpful. And of course, down at the end here, we have the east boat section, and this is just short of the channel crossing that we have 3 bridges built. And so done a few tours, taking folks into the tunnel and showing what that looks like. It's coming together, and so feeling really good about where we are. We've had some good progress with the work thus far, and hopefully we can continue with that. We're looking to hopefully have the tunnel structure done by the end of this construction season, and hopefully we can get our systems contractor out there. Right now, I have got a couple of videos or images to show of the construction itself. So this is some images of earlier this season with putting in some temporary struts, if you will, those yellow members. They essentially tension those in against the support on both sides, and then eventually weld in the brown or the kind of the semi-permanent struts. Those eventually come out, will be replaced with structure as we progress the tunnel construction. But just kind of give me an appreciation of confinement here of work. And so this is it's not easy work. We got the diver on the side there on the right side where they have to inspect. This is a subaquatic inspection, we call it. We have a diver going underwater to take a look at the sheets to make sure that there's no separation, because we've had some spreading or separation of the sheets as we press those sheets in. And it's particularly been an issue on the railroad side, and we've really had to halt work if we have an issue, so we want to try to prevent that. So if there is an issue, this diver will be down underwater welding, and they have to kind of feel for how they go about it. You can't really see it. It's a murky atmosphere down there in the water, and so they'll weld over some of the seams that have occurred. We had this big issue. I think I talked about this last time when we met. We had some rather serious issues back in November where it slowed us down because we had 3 areas in what we call CW8, cell number 8, that had some separations of the seams, and so the contractor had to weld those up. On the right side, or on the left side, we have our grouters. Now, this is kind of a special case where they're still in water. There's about 2 or 3, 4 feet of water. You can kind of see they're kind of floating this little barge-like piece of equipment that's covered with plastic right now, but they essentially grout around the perimeter because we have to seal that all off from the water that wants to come in. And so when we had those separations in the cell 8, it was quite an endeavor that they had to make sure that was all sealed up. And the intent here is that you eventually want to have these cells that are kind of like a cofferdam. You want to be able to build in the dry, so to speak. If we're looking at a cross section of the deepest part of the tunnel, to give you an idea, the sheets or the secants go down about 65 to 70 feet in the ground, and the excavation goes down about 45 feet. And then we're in about 22 or 23 feet of groundwater. As we shallow up, as we get to the south, it's not as severe. So we are starting to kind of climb out of the groundwater, but it's a lot of work. These guys out there are earning their pay. So as we get out of the groundwater, we have a leveling slab that goes on top of this tremie seal. That tremie seal varies from about 3.5 to 10 feet thick, and so they put about a half foot of a leveling slab to be able to work off that. And then eventually waterproofing gets placed on that. Waterproofing, essentially, I've talked before, where it encompasses the whole tunnel. And so you see the sheets, the membrane there, that's welded in place so you get the seams that are sealed. And then base slab work. This base slab is about a 3 foot thick concrete slab, a lot of reinforcement. And as this gets built up, those struts are be taken out. So after this gets poured, there's enough lateral support that they can take that first layer of strut system out of the way, so they can continue to work.
Where do you find these guys that have these skill sets that can weld underwater?
All over the state of Minnesota. Well, actually, we have a person that works on the Blue Line that was a former CB that did that type of work for I think for the Navy. So that's
Just
one
throw
avenue.
money at them, they make good money.
Yeah,
Really
yeah,
good
it's
money.
Well, I'm sure it is, but
it's interesting
quite
work.
a niche.
Yeah, it is.
But these guys and gals have to, we're doing this work in the wintertime too, so it's quite a mission. This image doesn't quite fully do justice, but there's a form traveler in the middle there between the struts, and that is used to place the concrete on the walls, both sides and in the middle, and also the roof. So that gets all poured at once. So these coffer dams are about 100 foot in length nominally, and this form traveler will essentially allow concrete to place in thirds of that. So they just did one yesterday for this actually one that we're seeing here. They poured that yesterday. So about a week's time, they'll be able to move and do the next one. Another week, they'll be able to do the third one for that CW8 cell. And lift stations. So we have 3 lift stations. This is on the east end, essentially at the kind of the end of where the portal turns into tunnel. And the purpose of this is to take any water that will come into the tunnel from the portal areas, both in east and west, and so we can have a way to get that out back to sanitary sewer. We also have a fire lift station about the middle of the tunnel if there's an event that we have to get rid of the water after that event, we'll have a means to do that. And inside the tunnel, probably doesn't look all that exciting, but I'm excited about this. We have what we're called concrete plinths. See those raised concrete off of the right side is our emergency walkway. And just beyond that wall is another chamber here that will allow I think this is for the inbound and the outbound traffic is on the other cell there. So we have, you see these black pieces, those are called resilient fasteners. They actually absorb the ground-borne noise from the train traffic, and it's important to have that, particularly as we pass along the Sika towers. There's a lot of concern. There still is a lot of concern about potential for those folks feeling the train as we navigate through the tunnel. Yes.
I was just wondering, are you actually going to put ties here? Does that section of concrete, does that substitute for ties?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So we'll essentially, what you'll see is rail going on top of that, and it gets fastened to these resilient fasteners, those black pieces there. Yeah.
Go ahead, Dan.
Jim, are there any openings in that wall that separate the two inbound and the outbound lines?
Yeah, we have 3 passageways through this tunnel to do. And their doors, they're kind of like the stainless steel doors. They look like the big honking things, and it's actually pretty easy to move them. Yeah. So if we do have an incident, we would likely, once we get our responders in there, we would take them to the next, over to the other side there.
Okay.
And evacuate the tunnel.
Question.
Yes.
Connie?
Just curious about ventilation, and I hate to take it down to the emergency thing, but what if something happens in there? Is there ventilation for fire and things like that?
Sure. Yeah.
Exit?
So on both ends, towards both ends, there's if you're in there, you'll see the roof or the ceiling does a big arch, and we have provision for jet fans to be placed in those. Those can be installed by our systems contractor. So yeah, there's a whole lot of study going on during preliminary and final design to make sure that we're following code. And I had a bunch of smart guys and gals looking at this thing, and determined that the length of it's about 2,200 feet of tunnel, that it required those provisions.
Exit for people to get out if there was something.
Yes. Yeah, essentially it would be, like I say, if there's an incident in this portal, if you will, I call it, the passengers would be transferred into the other one, and they would evacuate either end of the tunnel. All right, so we get to the boat section, and give you an idea what that looks like. Some construction earlier this season on the left, and kind of finished product ready for rail on the right there. And I just couldn't resist showing this sign. This is the pedestrian bridge that was built, and this is one of the 3 bridges we built along with the WPA walls, Works Progress Administration, on both sides of the channel. That was done for mitigation as we navigated with the park board on this alignment. All right, so we're going to move on from the tunnel, and we're starting to get a lot of track placed. So this is just near 21st Street, and LRT track freight is off to the left there. And Bryn Mawr Station, things are coming along on this station. This is that access going over the UNSF tracks and the LRT tracks to get to a vertical circulation that has stair and elevator. It's essentially off the frontage road from 394. And then we're just getting beyond 394. We can see the quarter protection barrier we've had a lot of discussion about, and LRT track getting placed there as well. And then Bass Creek Valley Station, this one's coming along as well. See some of the finished product here. And Royalston, I was just up there this morning, and a lot of track getting placed. So this is going to be a different type of track. It'll be embedded. So essentially, if you're familiar with Central Corridor or the Green Line, that's pretty much almost all embedded, where it's just concrete up to the rail. And so eventually that's what we'll see here as we pull into the station. And our last bridge in the distance is the 5th, 7th Street Bridge, which is right here. So we're starting to put rail up there as well. So things are coming along, and this will link up to the Target Field Station. And then systems cranking along. Sometimes not a lot of exciting photos here, but they're getting the OCS wire fine-tuned. It's really kind of an art to make sure you have the proper tension on this piece. And so they're starting to put wire in on the other side of the tunnel. And we've contractors installed a number of signal houses and traction power substations. This is over at Shady Oak area, and we have essentially traction power substations. You can see off on these images here. We have those installed all the way almost to Westlake here, and we still have a few more to do in Minneapolis to complete. So with that, Mr. Chair, maybe I'll pause. Is there any questions for me before I hand it over to David?
Any more questions, Commissioner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, Jim, first of all, thank you. This is great. Really excited to see all that work on that tunnel finally getting through, and you had a good season. although you got a lot of rain right now. We were talking about that early. So I was just listening to your comments about the civil contract will most likely be completed by July 4th, but I heard the tunnel won't be done till the end of the construction season. So can you
Sure,
comment
yeah,
on what the difference is
Yeah,
there?
thanks for that, Commissioner. So what I was speaking of is essentially from Southwest Station up to just short of Westlake. Those are a series of segments. That work will be pretty
Done by
much
July
done. We saw a punch list items to
Okay.
do. Systems is out there pretty active. And then similarly, we're looking to have civil done later this year from Target Field Station up close to 21st. So the
Okay.
tunnel is still out there.
Okay,
And, yeah.
so everything else except the tunnel we've
Yeah.
done around the.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yes, Mayor.
Jim, thank you. I just wanted to comment that Dr. Carter and I were with Chair Zelli and with you, and we took a tour of the tunnel yesterday. And I just want to say that if you haven't done it, do it.
Okay.
These pictures are great, but, to be in that tunnel and to have somebody say, well, we're underwater now by 23 feet, I believe. The engineering that is required to get this done and the work that's being done is really quite amazing. And yeah, it's going to get done whether you go tour it or not. But I think it's really, for those of us who are involved in this, I think it's really important to see it. So I wanted to throw that comment out.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor, and definitely we want an opportunity for a number of people who've done it, but those who haven't, for the whole CMC, will have opportunities. David can kind of help arrange that, but it is, I have to say, every time I go down there, it amazes me because you realize how much is going on that you don't see now, it's underground. And it really is exciting that we might actually finish the tunnel this construction season. Amazing.
Yes, we're getting there.
It also answers a lot of the questions that you kind of don't want to sound dumb and ask, but we all have those questions, and this really makes the whole experience come alive, and I think that's really helpful for us as policymakers.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Connie.
It just reminds me of the 35W bridge construction. A question that Mayor Hovland asked about where do you get these people that do this kind of work. For that project, I remember 85% of all the labor, and that was expedited during winter. 11 months, a project that normally would take 3 years was done. And it was amazing. 85% of the labor was all local. And so you find a lot of these folks from around here. The murky water reminds me of a little side note quickly, where, again, not to drag this whole conversation down, but the last body that we could not find, the 13th body, and the Hennepin County scuba diver, one of them actually got caught in the rebar and almost lost his life. But so we ended up calling in the Navy SEALs from Washington, D.C. That cost us a couple $1 million, but it was a worthwhile investment. They were much more prepared with the white gloves so they could see a little bit better, at least see where their hands were under the murky waters in the Mississippi. But eventually they were able to do that. But it's amazing. So I agree with you, Mayor, for everybody to go get close to the action. And this project has had a lot of stories, but this is all positive stuff that it's worthwhile seeing and appreciating what our workforce can do. As an engineer, I love it, appreciate it, so, yeah.
Well, and actually some of our detractors, Robert, you should.
Yeah, just to build on what the mayor was saying, I had an opportunity to tour recently with some residents, nearby residents. They were, I think, overall pretty positive about it, and they were thrilled with the pedestrian bridge and the channel improvements. Enthusiastic about it. They're super anxious to get the bike trail restored, and that was one of their biggest questions. But it is, I agree, Mayor, it's an impressive project.
Yeah, Dr. Carter.
Speaking of that, when we were there yesterday, I was happy a neighbor stopped me and said, "What are you guys doing?"
Oh, yeah.
And I was able to explain, and so, and talk about the projection of the project being finished, moving toward the finish line, and it's good, those small contacts like that, it helps really make that connection and clear things up for a lot of people. Because if you think about that one person, they have family, they have friends.
Yeah.
So it kind of fans out, so it was great.
Yeah, yeah, thanks. Yeah, that's helpful. Any other comment, questions? I don't know. Yeah, David.
Thanks, Chair. Good morning, everybody. Again, David Davies with the Project Office Outreach Team. Want to give a brief update on our efforts so far this year and just talk a little bit about what we are looking ahead to for the rest of 2024. So talking about giving people a little bit of an update, giving the general public and community members more information about our progress. We conducted our first round of the public walking tours. Those are open to the general public. They're just first come, first serve. We conducted one tour per city, except for we did two of the tours at the Kenilworth Tunnel, and those mostly, I think most of the tours were full within a few days. I think the tunnel tours sold out. They're free, but they sold out within like 2 hours. So we hear that.
They're swift.
We hear that, right? Exactly. There's a surprise down there, right? We hear that, and we plan on making those opportunities available to the general community because we also, as valuable it is, and we'll talk more about this, how valuable it is for you all as champions of information, as trusted sources of information for your community members. We want you to have that information. We also want to have other community members see that firsthand so they start to disseminate that out into their networks as well, right? Seeing this narrative shift from, you know, the troubles that we've experienced to the progress that we're seeing, the success that we're seeing, and looking ahead toward opening day. So that was the May walking tours. We'll do public walking tours again in July and September, but we're also doing kind of one-off tours as needed. So please reach out to us. If there is a special group that kind of can self-organize, we're happy to tailor a tour to their interests, whether that's one site or an entire corridor, and we can certainly make that fit, right? We want to be available to them and give them upfront and unique experiences and showing the progress that we're making. We're also out at community events. That picture up on the top right was out, we were talking about the Beltline Bridge earlier. Thanks to the City of St. Louis Park and Three Rivers Park District for being out there for Bike to Work Day late last year. That was a great event to just be out there and show and see people utilizing the system that's back in operation, see these new amenities that are built as part of the project, but obviously with coordination and support and resources from other project partners. Just a great story to tell, right? I think we were talking about this earlier. Chair, you mentioned how important it is to eliminate interactions between cars and trail users, right? That's a big, important part of this project along this trail system is the underpasses and Beltline Bridge that do that, make the adjacent areas safer, whether or not you are using light rail. So happy to come out to more community events. I know the summer event season is rolling on, so you should expect to see staff out at some of those events. And then we're also making more of an effort to trying to show people what's going on via like highlight videos. Jim showed that kind of rough cut of the tunnel footage. We hope to have kind of a more comprehensive video showing the corridor and other videos highlighting the progress that we're making. This is just a still, that's not a video you can click on, but we do have highlight videos that we're rolling out about just small things, right? Like it doesn't have to, not every milestone has to be major, just the work that's being done in installing these TPSS units, because people see that and sometimes some people know what they're seeing, some people don't. And so we like to try to provide that information as to what people seeing out in the corridor. Jim was mentioning earlier about kind of the systems work not being quite as like, major. It doesn't look as major as some of the civil work, but we hear from community members, it's a very clear, it shows very clearly to the community what progress is being made when they see those poles going up, right? Like it's very visual how they see that progress of the OCS poles like marching and being erected down the corridor. So people note that, and we like to tell them like what's going on, as that work is being progressed. Next slide. So that's kind of what we've been doing. And we kind of talked about in February, the work that, the major theme this year, right, in 2024 is we're still doing construction. We're still out there, right? A lot in Minneapolis, a lot of dirt and concrete is still being moved and poured. But we also want to talk a little bit more about what's to come, right? Start looking ahead to 2027, right? 2025, the end of construction, 2027, opening this line for revenue service. So I wanted to just talk a little bit about that with you all today, and just highlight what we already do, right? That's the previous slide, these community events and tours. We get information to people through our construction update and newsletter, which we plan on revamping and tailoring a little bit more to storytelling and not just relating traffic impacts. We continue, we've done this in years past in providing updates to City Council, and we'll plan to do that. I think we were thinking more a little later this summer when we can show progress that's being made over this construction season. But also highlighting the newer areas of focus, the interactive content that I was talking about with the videos. Also talking about commemorating project milestones, right? So we haven't always been able to pipe up and talk about the wins that we're having, but some of these smaller initiatives like highlighting the work that's being done, like that TPSS video, like the drone video, talking about the June 20 or the turnover of the trail that's upcoming. We want to really build excitement for that and make sure people are aware of that. So just being proactive and getting that messaging out about the wins, right? The success that's being had. We also want to highlight what already exists, right? So there's a lot of things, whether they are permanent existing community assets. I'm thinking just off the top of my head, something as well known as downtown Hopkins, right? The Main Street environment of Hopkins that has existed for a long time, will continue to exist, and is just this ongoing amenity and ongoing thing that people recognize and will have greater access to because of the LRT. We want to just start to highlight those existing assets that are permanent, as well as other community celebrations and events like St. Louis Park Parktacular, like the Minnetonka Farmers Market, that may be a little bit off the line, but still definitely accessible, and ways in which we can highlight information about the project and build excitement for opening day. So we want to be out at those community events, but also highlighting things that you bring forward to us to talk more about what's important to your community members that will be even more visible when light rail opens. As Leslie was talking about earlier, a lot is going on just on the existing system. So another big important thing for us and the outreach team is to start to integrate the messaging that's not just project related, but metro system related, right? So we're bringing this new piece of infrastructure, this new amenity, and it's connecting to this already existing amenity that is the Metro Transit system. And so we want to make sure that people are aware as we move forward with this, as we move closer to opening day, that people are not only up to date on project progress, but they're up to date on the Metro Transit initiatives that we were discussing earlier about safety and security and otherwise. So those are the things that I'd like to focus on more starting this latter half of 2024. But I'd also like to hear from you today and into the future of, what are the topic areas that you'd like to see us focus on, right? Both in the short term of the summer and in 2024, but also looking longer term, 25, 26, 27, as we build this narrative and change from construction to opening day. What are the tools that would help us, right? Tools that can be simple handouts, but tools can be other resources that we can help to develop that would help you transmit that information out to your community members. And identifying the networks that you use, right? That we don't have to be at, but knowing what type of information works for what audience. So what tools aid in that? And then what are, again, kind of like the networks idea, what are the essential connections that we want to build? Maybe we've already been building them, maybe you have already done that groundwork, but how can we tap into that as we talk more about building excitement and getting people ready for opening day. Does that make sense?
Commissioner.
So this is wonderful. First of all, thank you for all the great outreach. That really matters. You're getting a lot of participation. I see that. But, you know, as I was going through this and you were showing this, I kind of had a vision of those, of when we start testing the trains and they're up and running really well, that and this is something that council members and county commissioners could put out for themselves too in their networks, is like at Eden Prairie, have like a food truck and stop and everything all set up like a party atmosphere, and go to Hopkins and have the same thing, and people could ride back and forth, even though the whole line's not open. It would be fabulous to be able to do some of those kinds of things, especially because I want to get Eden Prairie people on there who've not ridden the train before, right? How do I get them there? Offer food. You know, but have a party atmosphere there and put it out through the city, put it out through that, get the mayor involved and everything. You'll get a turnout, you know, to do that. And the kids will get to ride, you know, back and forth, and they can go look in where the driver is and all this. Make it really interactive with them so they get to ride the train if they want and everything. It may be the opportunity we have to really build ridership along that line, doing that between stops.
There might be some insurance underwriters or FTA
There's
rules.
somebody, they'll figure that out. There's attorneys who know how to do that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's a function of, first we have to test it to make
Yep.
sure it's safe. And so we are looking, we're forecasting to start at least pulling trains in third quarter of '25 on that west end that I just
Okay.
spoke of. In terms of getting passengers on, we'll have to talk about that. It's just, there's a lot of logistics to be able to get that in work.
I just think if we want to make it fun, easy, and it's not stress when somebody really wants to first take it the first time, if it's just a party atmosphere, it's a totally different experience for people, and that might bring them back.
I love the idea.
Yeah.
I just,
Should we figure this out somehow?
two little thoughts too. Like one, regardless of how if we get them on a train or not, activating spaces, I think, that are starting to be more available to people. We can start to have conversations. Obviously, we need to make sure that the spaces are ready and safe for
Yes.
people, but identifying those spaces as they
Where they are.
become available
Yeah.
and being able to activate those where appropriate, I think is a really great idea. And then we also, you know, right now when we take some people out on tours, it's like a 12-passenger van, right?
Yeah.
But I think we can also move people around to sites in ways that's more comfortable. We can look into that so that even if it's not yet the train,
Yeah.
we can still give people that feeling and
Yeah,
and
follow
start to
the
get-
train along
Yep.
and have something at the end of that and then bring
Right.
them back, yeah.
I also just want to
Forth.
say, I know that, you know, the trail was there, it is there, it's going to be there for, right, the Cedar Lake Trail. Activating that space is doing what you are saying, but maybe, I know that there are
trolley or
mobility, there's audiences that may not be able to participate in this fully, but activating spaces on the Cedar Lake Trail
But just a
is key.
trolley, get a trolley up and down there.
So,
That's what you need on the train.
Chair, if
Yeah,
I
yeah,
may,
Mayor.
Quick comment before I have to run, but thank you for your comments, and I don't have the list of great ideas now, but I will definitely put some thought into that. But to build on what Commissioner Gotell said, I have experience with the fact that free food brings people in much better than do mayors, and with all due respect. to
Yeah,
other
that's true,
commissioners.
it's true. But we can put it out in our network.
But, exactly, and we can, and so to bring people in, I think, you know, making it event-oriented. They're always happy when the mayor and the commissioner shows up, but they really like the free food.
Yep.
That's what brings people out. So let's
Yep.
be honest and, you know, play to that. There's some things that we can do there and have fun with it, you know, at the right time. I mean, for not, you know, we have to make sure that we're dotting all our i's
Yeah.
and dotting, or crossing our t's and dotting our i's appropriately. But I think that as we get closer, I think I think we really want to build some enthusiasm. Because it's been a long road, and we have to demonstrate to the naysayers that this is really a great thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Dan.
It depends on who the mayor is who shows up. Just kidding.
Well,
David, I just wonder
Fair
if you've had any thought about maybe reaching out to the news media. And as you were talking about this, one of the stories that kind of came to my mind is, you know, how Carol Levin does those Land of 10,000 Lakes stories with Boyd Hooper. You know, there's definitely a story to tell behind this project. I mean, it goes on, you know, for almost like 40 or 50 years from when it was actually conceived. But I've been involved for 22 years, and I know, how much I've seen happen, and I know that there's just so many things that really can be told that the public isn't aware of, and I don't know if, when the right time to do that is, if maybe you have to wait till you get closer to the finish line, or if it's now before all the construction is completed, or when that would happen, but just wondering if there's some way to do something like that where it could reach a bigger audience to tell the whole story of this project, so.
I appreciate that. I think there's certainly a role for media to play at some point. We don't have to wait for media. With those videos, there's a wealth of information along the line. I guess that's part of what I want to convey here, is that there's a wealth of information along the line, right? There's the what's being built, but there's also what's around the line, like the broader station areas.
Yeah.
And I think there are ways in which we can do that start to build excitement, like lay the foundation, so that we're getting some attention, and then media can be engaged as well to highlight that or build on that and amplify some of that storytelling.
Tim first, then
sorry,
Tyrone.
I'm not leading.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate all the information also, and the Turnover the Trail event sounds like a great idea. I mean, probably the most inquiries we get are from bicyclists that are like, when are the trails opening? We gotta know.
I hear you.
So anything we can do to activate that. Do you have a tentative date at all for that or not?
We're right now forecasting the end of the month.
Oh, wow,
Fun.
wonderful.
Yeah.
And we're talking about an event to celebrate the trails coming up this summer.
Yeah, okay, great. So as much information as we can get that out, we'll push it out on social media here.
Absolutely.
Just to throw an
Dr.
idea
Carter.
out there, seems to me like the story of the divers is a recurring story. And at some point, maybe you interview a few of the divers, and then you make that connection between the Navy SEAL aspect of it and how those divers came to be. I was even looking at the headpiece. I've never seen a headpiece like that on a diver before. I was in the Navy, so I've seen a few. So it's just a really interesting human interest angle that the public, and it could pique their interest to see, because it speaks to the expertise to develop those secant walls and install them and the whole expertise of the operation, so.
We hope to be doing an interview with some of the divers, hopefully next week.
Oh, wonderful.
Great.
Great, see?
Great minds think alike,
Yeah, I
right?
know.
I appreciate that, Dr. Carter.
I do think the idea that the train is in '27, but the trails are this year.
Yep.
And there are businesses who are supported by the bike trails. I think
yeah.
about that Nordic Wear place is opening up a little cafe. I mean, we should try to maybe have events, speaking of food.
No, we should, and we should use the businesses that are
Yeah.
around these stations
Right,
to help us and to be able to promote themselves.
right.
That is the idea of building up this transit-oriented design.
Any other, all right, well, no shortage of ideas. Keep them coming. We'll have
Please
an
keep them coming.
opportunity.
Yep.
And David, thank you for all your work.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Any other questions, comments? If not, John, we'll get a report, and I want to acknowledge your intern, Samantha Lee, who's here helping you, and obviously you have a whole team.
Thank you. Yeah. So Samantha's going to be helping us monitor DBE contracts and getting some experience meeting small businesses that are working out there. So she'll be shadowing us as we meet up with the subcontractors. So this is just showing the achievements back from March of what's all been paid out to DBEs and the overall contract at that time. As Jim shared, some of the DBEs on this contract are on the civil contract, and some of them have completed their scopes. So our task next is to meet up with the DBEs and start some of the closeout processes with them as they've finished up their scope and have moved on to other projects. And then we're still continuing to have conversations with subcontractors, DBE subcontractors that are still on the project and doing work. So that's something good as DBEs are able to move on to other projects and then be able to, leave this work here. Something else is on the systems contract. Our systems contractor has been putting in work when they find in opportunities to be inclusive of small businesses and DBEs that they are continuing to, give those scopes of works to the DBEs to increase DBE participation. So that's always something good that we like contractors to do, is to put in that good faith efforts to be inclusive and expand when there's a scope, because sometimes when they are exceeding the goal already, contractors may have less incentive to do that. So having them going above and beyond is definitely a good sign for us. And then something else I want to add too is that normally I have workforce reports to share, but recently MDHR is having some issues with compiling some of the workforce data, so we're working with them to resolve that. So I don't have any workforce data to report, but then we're still meeting with them on a monthly basis to go over the achievements and the contractors to go over those achievements. But that is my update.
Great, thanks, John, and congratulations on the progress. Any questions, Robert?
Yeah, Chair, thanks, John, for that, and really encouraging numbers. And just wondering on the workforce conversations that you're having, I acknowledge there's issues beyond your control about compiling data, but just what's the tone or tenor of our progress on the workforce goals?
I think regarding workforce, we are on par with what's kind of going on with the region and other construction projects.
Okay.
So the capacity of our region to meet these construction needs,
Sure.
yeah, it's still underneath the goal.
Okay.
But every project that we have these goals on, and we work with contractors to increase participation, builds up the experience and the capacity for us to do this work. So it's all contributing to it. MnDOT does a lot of work too, and they do more horizontal work. So this is a little bit of both, of horizontal and vertical. And working with the contractors, they are putting in efforts to even engage high school kids as they're coming out of graduating, just exposing them to the environment. I think we also have a workforce development program. I think you've heard me share before about the building stronger communities cohort, and they are putting in work as well. So every little bit matters, and it helps as the larger picture, because when we're thinking about upcoming construction projects, we want to build up capacity. So as people gain more experience, then they obtain the higher level positions and are retained. So that's kind of where we're at. MDHR, they are monitoring the workforce, and then working with the contractors monthly to review their achievements. The compiling of the data, since now I think we've had over 1 million+ hours, so the numbers get pretty big, and trying to compile it all together takes some work. So that's kind of where some of those, the time needed to do that is a little bit more extensive.
Cool, thanks, appreciate it. Thanks, Chair.
Great. Any other questions, thoughts? All right, thanks, John, again, and thanks, everybody, for your continuing interest, support, involvement. Stay tuned this summer, events, tours. This is now, just a reminder, the CMC is kind of quarterly meetings, so we don't have a specific date, but we expect it late summer, early fall. We'll have a lot more to talk about then. In the meantime, June 18th, 4:30, Target Field. Grab some of these on the way out. And good to see you all. This meeting's
thank you.
Thank
adjourned.
you, Chair.